right, my beautiful people, we have an extraordinary evening for you all. It's an evening which is going to open your hearts, fill you with wonder, inspire you, encourage you. Holy Spirit stuff. We have two performance poets that are about to stand upon this stage and begin tonight. One is Joel. Many of you have seen the large, red-headed, dreadlocked man roving like some crazed prophet from the olden times. He happens to be the artist ambassador for TIA. Maybe he's done some TEDx talks. Apparently there's some podcasts out there. Maybe there's something to do with winning a whole lot of awards. He's also a darling dada to two beautiful little people. He's a husband, he's a son, he's a child of God, and he's come to share his work with us this evening. And we also have Roje, who is here, sitting over here, born in the Congo, raised in Uganda with a Rwandan family, a spoken word poet to open your heart. He writes and performs poetry to share the story of his people and to encourage others to find their own voice. Please put your hands together for these amazing men.
Good evening. Who's had a good day? Good. So the way we're going to do tonight in terms of poetry is I'm going to share a poem, Roje's going to share a poem, I'm going to share a poem, Roje's going to share two poems, and then I'm going to finish this off. So we've got 3 poems for you each, just to let you know what's happening. This first one for me is what I learnt from my children. I began a creative and spiritual practice a little bit after having my children, where I would get down on the ground and I'd crawl around with Aiden looking at things as though I was seeing them for the first time. And then I got a magnifying glass and my creative discipline became going around and looking, and I got a little mini one for him, going around and looking at the world as though I was seeing it for the very first time. And in that experience, meeting God, meeting the sacred. There's a poem called Raindrops, and Paul's going to join me on the piano. So I watched the other day as she flattened button nose against misty window, traced raindrop snail trail lines down the glass with her fingers. Little girl, you see so much clearer than I ever could. Too often I run from playing in the rain. I do not see God in its drops as you do, little girl. Too often I do not see God in misty windows. I do not sense the ever-present sacred, pull back layers of the mundane, glimpse infinity. Mind too busy, scattered rush of too many thoughts and too many phone calls and too many responsibilities, little girl. Would you teach me of that secret story woven in and through the fabric of simplicity? For heavy are these eyelids that try to hold the world up. Little boy I watched the other day as he, bold adventurer, secret marauder, treasure-seeking explorer, skimming stones in the river, jump high from boulder to boulder like feet were meant to walk on the edges. Little boy, my feet seem too stuck to pavements these days, shoelaces tied with too much conviction. I have left sandcastles for houses of brick and mortar, and still I am scared. Little boy, would you teach me of just how light this earth may be beneath these feet? Teach me, little girl, little boy, little friend, teach me, little bird with clipped wings and chipped beak who still escapes from rusty cage. Would you teach me, little hands worn rough from splinter fields, little mama eating lunch on the same park bench for the last 40 years, little hands, little rough, little known, little I am here, little stone, would you teach me, little moon, would you teach me, little stars, would you teach me, little home, little known, I am known if I can only know. Here you teach me in the rain and the pain and the death of self. Teach me, open my eyes and teach me. May I sense spirit in the simple things. Be present to the presence of things. To slow down enough to hear the words that a busy world does not heed. For heavy are these eyelids that try to hold the world up but you. As I dwell in the mystery of you in this world, I know that I must say, God, would you rid me of God, of the smallness of that which I comprehend, the arrogance to believe that I see clearly, that these answers that I hold so dearly could be just another notch on the belt of my own insecurity. For you are unknown even as I know you. You're at one and the same, as close as my skin, yet as far away as the moon on some other planet, on some other day, yet I still feel your breath on my cheeks. I can see you now, but I can't see you. I know you, but I don't know you. Your transcendent immanence, where distance and closeness are two sides of the same coin. So would you let me keep that coin in the pocket in my chest? Sometimes I take it out and I flick it in the air, but it never lands to show me where you are, whether near or far. So I say, God, would you rid me of God? These names that I write upon your forehead, for they are not the reality, the totality of you. They would better be scribed upon my own, for that is what they are. For I can see you now, but only through glasses, thick with lenses, embedded with colors painted from the years of my own understanding. This world around me becomes what I perceive it to be. I do not see you as you are. I see you as I may be. I am in bondage to these things that I think that I know. My idols are my own understandings when they're set in stone. So stay liquid, God. Even as I try to freeze you in my molds, especially the one that looks just like me. Stay liquid, God. Beyond the ground, God. In the flowers, God. In the trees, God. May I meet you, God, little friend. Little boy, little girl, open my eyes that I may see again. Thank you.
Short people. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Roje, and I'll be doing a few poems with you guys tonight. That gave me so much goosebumps. I was made a poet long before I was born. The struggles of my existence was a metaphor of its own. I never tried, but poetry came to me through my mother. You see, she is an agricultural poet who speaks to the earth, turning hard concrete into life-giving gardens. She is gentle, patient, and strong. Despite experiencing so much horror and pain, she remains calm, refusing the horrifying dreams that takes her back where she once was, repetitively putting her in a state of hopelessness. And some nights, she'd wake up stuttering with her eyes wide open, face filled in sweat, asking if we're okay. All she's ever wanted is for her sons never to bleed, but to write and read. And we wish her never to plead, but to dance in peace. She is strong. I had never seen this woman cry until my father died. And trust me, she had plenty of chances to cry. But she always showed us that everything was gonna be all right. She made me a poet. God put me in this position, so I speak what my eyes have seen, creating scenes, living in the past to create dreams. I speak for people without a voice. And this is not to preach, but to teach and reach the weak ones, people like me. So I never hesitate to resuscitate the sleeping souls, those trapped under the sea of icicles. I was made a poet by my prayers as a young boy. Dear Lord, tonight help me not go to sleep, so when something hits the door, I can get up and run. Dear Lord, please help me to be killed by a gun or a bomb, for I do not want to be slaughtered by a machete or a knife. Lord, please restore the love between Hutus and Tutsis. We are tied by the same harness on the same land. We share the same language. Why do we spill our own blood? I was made a poet by my church choir. They sang the most transcendent melodies. Sometimes it made me feel like Jesus was coming back. The kindness in our village, they shared everything. Not just smiles and handshakes, but they shared salt and fire. They prayed for each other. Not just that conversation prayer, but prayers of meditation, connection, and faith. I was made a poet by the elders' profound proverbs. Surrounded by a strong kinship, they spoke and we listened. My eyes glistened as they told tales of our history, turning mystery into poetry. And that's why I remember the scenes when the cloudless moon came to play at night, and we danced. Fire sparks and dust filled the air as we stomped the ground. We were dancing on the same drum beat our ancestors sang on. To this day, I still hear the ancient drums echoing in silence, and that means Africa is calling. Thank you.
So much of the power of poetry lies in storytelling, in sharing stories, and they actually call poetry a form of half communication, in the sense that I come halfway to you with my story, Roje comes halfway to you with his story, and in response you bring your own story. Your story is changed by hearing the stories of other people, be they people of your culture or a different culture, and so that's where the magic happens, in the storytelling. This is a story from my life. So I used to believe that heaven was up there, out there, some spiritual cloud in the sky, someplace separate from this earth, this life, this body, this flesh, this scrappy fracture, this bent and broken. I used to think the point of living was the getting there in the dying, to leave this earth behind. But this earth, if there is a God who made it, then he said it was good. I must have misunderstood on my way up. I missed the God who is coming down. For what if God was one of us? Just a slob like one of us, just a stranger on a bus or a tram like yesterday, like drug shakes, like stubble of chin, like lazy eye, like a God begging for my money, down here amongst it all, where they tried to tell me that God could not be found in such places as this and could not be seen in such people as these, yet I've never seen God back away from his own presence before. Like the time that I met Joe. Joe was a lonely man, the sort of dirty smudge most choose to ignore. And I'd always been one of these, the type to ignore, conditioned not to see he in front of my face if he looked different to me. The day had just begun. A yawning morning, the sun was blinding. I was window gazing and looking for breakfast. Instead, I met Joe. Took a seat beside him. Silence the voices of my social conditioning, those defining who is in and who is out, who is safe and who is scary, who is worthwhile and who is not. You see, stranger danger may keep our children safe, but it too often keeps us lonely. Joe was a lonely man. Rough beard sprouting from unclean face, shifting eyes hidden well beneath drooping beanie, tattered clothes hunched back, skin wrinkled, pulled back tight around bones. I bought Joe breakfast and listened to his story, a tale of loss and suffering and pain and perseverance. His wife and daughter had been sideswiped by a drunk driver. Joe was a lonely man. He was a lonely man with a bad bed. You see, he lived in a housing commission set of flats nearby, and his mattress there was worthless, a thin strip of rubber that gave him pain and sleepless nights. So I offered to buy him a bed. He refused. I refused his refusal. He told me that he didn't want to be a charity case. I told him the very act of him refusing meant that he wasn't being one. I pressed, and he gave me his address. I rang a bed company and had one delivered the next day. And then the old man just broke. Tears rolling down his eyes, and I just broke, and God just broke, and we just cried. And he wrapped me in his arms, the smell of unwashed clothes and stained memories and the tears that fell like rain. And I tell you, I have never been hugged by God like that before. So I say to you now that if every body is made in the image of the divine, then does not this divinity reside in every body? As the Hindus say, namaste, which means I bow to honor the divine in you. And by you, I mean you. And I mean the man begging on the street, and the refugee behind barbed wire fence, and the lady beaten by her husband. And somehow I also mean her husband, the addict and his dealer, the street worker and her pimp, the oppressed and the oppressor. Namaste to the boy carved into being a terrorist. Namaste to the boy carved into believing that every Muslim is one. Namaste to you, Pauline Hanson. Namaste to you, Donald Trump. See, this is never easy. This honoring the divine in everybody, this loving enemy as self. But imagine the world if we did. Imagine the world if we chose to give people back their humanity by honoring their divinity. Every single body made in the image of the divine. Look them in the eye and see the Christ as he says, what you do for the least of these, what you do for the least of these, you do for me. So let us give ourselves to that kind of heaven, that down here heaven, that heaven on earth heaven, that namaste heaven, that love your enemy as yourself heaven. So namaste to you, and namaste to you, and namaste to you.
This one is for my dad. Disturbing my peace, I see ghosts of you in strangers. I miss you, Dad. Growing up, a curious mind craving wisdom in conversations from a father to a son. I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you about her. I want to hear the stories from back in the days of you and the boys. Even at the apex of maturity, I'm just a boy, broken and tarnished, seeking your presence and words to embellish me. On dark days, I'm on your sun rays. When I feel destined for the gutters, that's when I need your guidance to stellars. Hold my hand. Searching for your diminishing footsteps to follow. Searching for your diminishing footsteps to follow, 'cause I lost my atlas. My memory is fading. I lost a man, a lion, a sensei, and some say time heals, but I've lost a part of me. a gorgeous particle, prolific memory surrendered to the soil by loved ones. Father, I was falling, Niagara Falls in my iris, I was bleeding, hoarding storms in my abdomen, border patrol in my esophagus, had to relearn to walk when you passed away. And many a day I tried to run from here and there, in darkness lost vision, Eden perished paradism, but I survived with the living, fighting like Tom Hanks in Castaway. And many a day I tried to run from here and there, in darkness lost vision. Jeez. Okay, I can't remember, sorry. I'll just leave it from there. Thank you. I've got one more poem. This poem, if I'm ever to be blessed with a son, this is for him. It's for my future son. Hopefully I remember it. Okay. My son, I am waiting for you. The day you grace earth, I will rejoice. I will hold you in my palms, protect you from harm. I will sing songs sung by my mother when I was born. I will write and recite your 1,000 poems to remind you that you have a home. Son, my love for you is built on a stone, never to be shattered or torn. And as your father, I will never conceal to express my pride in you. My genetics, you are my little universe, and your body holds essence of generations before me. My good parts are your inheritance, and I will guide you to avoid my rugged tenements. Daily I will send 1,000,000 altitude of gratitude to God for sending his son to die for my son. And son, let me tell you, you are not an accident. For these poems are prophecies of echoed promises exposing my heart to you. So as we begin this exodus of us exploring this rusting life, forgive me when I am weak and disappoint you. When I am no longer your superhero, talk to my Father in heaven. But remember, you are embedded in the left region of my chest, and I will love you till my body goes to rest. And child, your existence invigorates my soul to the core. Introduction of contemplation of you when I was a teen. Back then, life was tough without a father. When I had big questions and grand decisions, I imagined you asking me for advice, and I took the advice I would have given you. They say the boy is the father of the men, and you have been my splendid silent teacher. You have sculptured me into a man. Even though I am yet complete, my roots dig even deeper. So little boy, I will raise you into a man, teach you to flex more brains than biceps, open more books than Facebook. In this world of desensitized youth, I will fight with you. In this world of materialized women, I will send lullabies of chivalry. In this dark, deceiving, desolate world of devils disguised as disciples, delivering poisoned passions in portions, I will search for the light with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Friends, keep on going for Roje. Thank you so much, Roje. I got to see Roje a few years ago when he was just starting, and you have so much come into your presence. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Really wonderful. Really wonderful. Absolutely. I just have one last poem to share with you all. If you're interested and you enjoy this kind of thing, I've got a book up there Hollowed Out Lungs, which is a book of my poetry. My creative challenge is to write a poem every single day. And the last few years, 4 years now, I've done that. And so a few of those have, obviously it's not that many poems, a few of those have come into this book. And this also is a CD of my poetry with my band. So it's poetry like I'm doing now, but with piano and a female vocalist and violin and percussion and things like that. So they're at the back if you're interested. Thank you so much. Here's my final poem. There is too much pain here. Have you seen it? Or not seen it as much as felt it? Let the broken wrap around you like chain, like heavy chain, like sorrow. There is too much sorrow here. It gets under your skin and in your eyes, a dark lens, and everything seems hopeless these days. Everything seems hopeless. The little girls taken as sex slaves, suicide behind detention center fences, a black man shot, a little boy washed up on a beach, a wife beaten, the president, his grabby hands, and how we just bluff off abuse from those who are in power, the incarceration of color, and always the starving children, or just the people our government still keeps imprisoned on an island called Nauru. Sometimes I just don't know what to do. Despair is an absence, and I feel useless in its blankness. And yet, friends, my daughter still makes me smile. And my son, he makes me laugh. Yet the girl who was raped, on the day that I met her, she would not stop tickling her brother. Both of them lost in a rapture deeper than I could ever know. Yet the girl with the HIV scabs all over her body on the dirty streets of Kampala, she would not stop giggling and pulling faces at me, her revelry, a refusal in the face of the disease that burnt through her body. Yet the boy in Burma who had just seen his family shot, he still loved to play paper, rock, and scissors, and he would beat me every time. Yet the children, they still chase each other daily through the bombed out buildings of the broken city. They do not realize, so they do not let the delight die. Yet they fly kites, yet they dance, yet they dream, yet the mothers still sing, and I have heard their song, and it sounds like hope, and it sounds like jubilation, and I do not understand it. Still joy resides here. Where she should not be, there she thrives, more vibrant than anything. So if these fractured friends, if they may still smile, then I too must find a place of gladness, lest I deny them the delight they have to feel. I too must appreciate the way the day always begins with color, the way the flowers grow, the way the words taste, the way the afternoon sun warms my skin, the way she lets me in. I too must hold hands with delight and kiss the extravagance, to revel in this existence, to not despair, to see that beauty. She is everywhere, folded deep into every dark thing. So may our lives be a chasing of the beautiful, not a taking of the light into the darkness, but recognizing she already resides there. So let us chase the light and find the light and taste the light and dance the light, become the light, even in the night when the sun is cast upon a heavy moon. Friends, do not despair. For this beauty, this light, this life, they are everywhere, folded deep into every dark thing, even when we can no longer see them. Do not despair. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us.